100 years, something has been happening to music. Look at this. Light and water, an ocean, a melting, a dissolving. The solid shapes we thought we once knew, the symphony, the pop song, have been fractured, remade, peeled open, becoming something more like this: a liquid, a landscape, an ocean. This is a series about that dissolution. Our guide is this book, David Toop's Ocean of Sound. But it's not a history book. It's not about categories: ambient, electronic, experimental. Those are for shops. No, this is a map of a different kind of territory, a dreamscape. Toop suggests that for the last century, music has been preparing us for now, preparing us for this electronic ocean we all swim in. It's become an open lattice, a shifting web where everything connects. A Paris exhibition in 1889, a rave in a freezing London warehouse, a saxophone note from Saturn, the ghost in a telephone wire. So, what is this journey? It's a story about listening, about how musicians became virtual travelers, creators of sonic theatre, how the sounds of the world, the hum of the city, the signals from deep space, the rhythm of a mother's heartbeat, all flow back into the music. It's a story about drifting, about a music that encourages a kind of positive rootlessness, a music that creates a space for contemplation, but it's also about a search for ritual, for meaning, in a world that can feel like it's drifting towards nothing at all. Our central image? Signals, transmitted across the ether. From the 19th century to the turn of the millennium, we'll travel with the armchair decadents who tasted symphonies on their tongue. We'll sign up for Outer Spaceways Incorporated. We'll scan the city's secrets from the airwaves, and we'll learn to find the contentment in the void. We'll ask, can a landscape sing? When does listening become eavesdropping? And what happens when the ghosts of dead singers are brought back to perform one last duet? This is a series about how music became atmosphere, the immersive and submersive soundtrack to our lives. How we, the listeners, began to float in that ocean. It's a story of fragments and mantras, of journeys real and imaginary. So come on in, the water's strange. Join me as we dive into the ocean of ambience. Sound, it's our first companion, the muffled rhythm of a heartbeat in the womb, and our last, perhaps, the breath that fades into silence. But between those 2 points, between them, lies an entire universe woven from vibrations, a personal atlas of memory where every sigh, every slammed door, every half-heard song is a landmark. David Toop, in his Ocean of Sound, invites us to navigate this atlas, to understand how these echoes shape not just our past, but the very music we create and crave. Toop begins not with music, but with sound itself, his own sound memories. A beautifully chaotic symphony of the everyday. He asks us to listen with him, to hear the tiny, almost imperceptible jump of a flea onto a polished wood floor, the muffled drama of neighbours arguing through a thin wall, the fizzing drone of a single streetlight, a bee trapped in a chimney flue, its buzzing amplified to the dimensions of the room, the eerie, collective lament of train whistles at a railway terminal, all blowing at once, buckling the air. These aren't just fleeting impressions, they are anchors. They place us, as he says, in the universe. Think about it. What sounds instantly transport you? Is it the crackle of a vinyl record before your favourite song begins? The specific way the sea sounds on a particular beach? The chime of a grandparent's clock? This power, this ability of sound to bypass the rational mind and plug directly into our deepest emotions. our most vivid recollections. It's profound, it's almost magical, and it makes me wonder, is this the core, the very heart of what we seek in certain kinds of music? That sense of being reconnected, not just to a melody, but to a feeling, a place, a lost moment in time. Long before the technology existed, the impulse was there, the desire to curate one's own sensory world. Perhaps the first prophet of this interior life was a fictional one, des Esseintes, the hero of Joris Karl Huysmans' 1884 novel, Against Nature. A decadent aristocrat, he retreats from the world into a fortress of exquisitely refined taste. After reading Dickens, he decides to travel to England, but his journey ends in a Parisian tavern. Surrounded by English expatriates, eating oxtail soup and drinking port, he concludes that the reality could only be a disappointment compared to the art he has already consumed. After all, he reflects, what was the good of moving when a fellow could travel so magnificently sitting in a chair? He was the original armchair traveller, the proto-virtual nomad, like so many of us today. Des Esseintes didn't just consume art, he created new forms. He designed a mouth organ of liqueurs, where each tap released a drop that corresponded to a musical instrument. Caracao for the clarinet, gin for the cornet, allowing him to play symphonies on his tongue. His greatest obsession, however, was perfume, an art he argued as valid as one based on sound waves. This is where a fascinating connection is made a century later, in a lecture titled Perfume, Defense and David Bowie's Wedding. Brian Eno spoke of scents in almost musical terms. Orris butter, he noted, is floral in small amounts, but almost obscenely fleshy in quantity. Civet from the anal gland of a cat is disagreeable when recognised, but amazingly sexy in subliminal doses. This idea of subliminal influence, of shaping an environment rather than dominating it, had been with him for years. In 1975, writing for Street Life magazine, he predicted we would one day use music as we use colour to tint the environment. This was the seed of ambient music. His famous definition that it must be as ignorable as it is interesting wasn't about creating sonic wallpaper. It was about creating a presence that didn't demand your full attention. This resonates with what the designer Claude Debussy called invisible design in 1988, the idea of fluid objects whose new pleasures are associated with smells or sounds or lights. Or as the critic Claire Pollin wrote, connecting musical minimalism to the vast, quiet canvases of Mark Rothko and Ad Reinhardt, it reflects a desire to escape into an enfolding quietude from the pressures of a frenetic, discordant world, a desire for blankness, for a space to think. Just as Des Esseintes was retreating into his imaginary worlds, a real-world encounter was about to change the course of music. Paris, 1889, the Exposition Universelle, a grand spectacle of colonial power, a forged map of the world laid out as proof of conquest. Amidst the marvels of iron and steam, a young composer, Claude Debussy, a man who believed his memories were worth more than reality, encounters something that will shatter his Wagnerian conditioning forever, the Javanese Gamelan. He may have witnessed the sacred Bedea dance, a performance based on myths of a sultan visiting a goddess in her palace at the bottom of the sea. Watery themes for a composer who would give us La Mer. This wasn't the music of Vienna or Paris, it was something else. A music of shimmering textures, of intricate, interlocking patterns, like light dancing on the water. It didn't march relentlessly forward. It existed. It created a space, an atmosphere. Leonard Huizinga described it as a state like moonlight poured over the fields. Years later, the Canadian-American composer Colin McPhee, a pioneer who lived in Bali before the Second World War, would describe the new Kebiar style as expressing a new spiritual restlessness. But what Debussy heard was a music that could sustain long durations, that could accommodate shifting levels of attention. McPhee noted of all-night Balinese performances that you could drift in and out, you could even sleep, and the music would still be there, holding the space. A music that was both interesting and ignorable. Debussy, the stay-at-home, drifted into these unknown sound zones and found answers to impulses he already felt. Huysman's decadent, crafting sensory worlds in his locked room. Philip K. Dick with his mood organs, directly dialing up emotions. J.G. Ballard's sonic sculptures and singing plants. They were all prophets of the interior journey. They foresaw our world of personal sound bubbles, of becoming utterly untethered from place, from performance, becoming open to influences of every culture, every sound, blurring the lines between creator and listener, between music and noise, between the real and the exquisitely imagined. This is what Toop calls the drift, a movement through technology, through memory, through these cross-cultural moments, a journey where, as the writer Peter Lamborn Wilson suggests, that the landscape might once again become invested with meaning, a kind of sacred drift, in which we are all telematic nomads, travelling magnificently, sitting in a chair. You see, reading Ocean of Sound is like looking at an old, intricate map. At first you see the continents, the big names like Debussy, Brian Eno. But if you lean in closer, you see the coastlines aren't smooth. They're fractal, packed with bays and inlets, each with a name. And that's where the magic is. In just this opening chapter, the first dip in the water, look at the crew Toop assembles on his ship. He starts with the prophets, the dreamers of our sonic future. There's the decadent Joris Karl Huysmans, tasting symphonies from his liqueur cabinet. And in his orbit, the symbolist poets he so admired, Mallarmé, Verlaine, Rimbaut. Alongside them, the modern seers, Thomas Pynchon, hearing digital violins in a pizzeria, J.G. Ballard, imagining singing statues on a desert reef, and Philip K. Dick, conceiving a mood organ that plays emotions directly on the brain. Then you have the composers, the architects of sound. Of course there's Claude Debussy, but Toop surrounds him with the ghosts of Wagner, the titan he had to escape, and the puckish spirit of Erik Satie. He shows us the lineage of composers who followed Debussy's gaze towards the east. Colin McPhee, Olivier Messiaen, and the whole American dynasty of John Cage, Steve Reich, and Lamonte Young. But the genius of the book is in the unexpected guests at this party, the thinkers who gave us the language to understand it all. Edward Said on Orientalism, Umberto Eco on expositions, the designer Claudia Donna on invisible design, the critic Claire Pollin on minimalism. He even invites the forgotten pioneers like Felix Louis Reynaud, filming a Wolof woman making a pot in 1895, and the occultists who influenced Huysmans, like the Abbé Boulon. It's a dizzying, intoxicating mix. A composer sits next to a sci-fi writer, a symbolist poet next to a colonial governor, a design theorist next to a magician. You can see the full cast of characters from this single chapter on the screen now. Toop weaves them together so elegantly that their connections feel not just logical, but inevitable, like harmonics resonating from a single, fundamental note. And the most astonishing thing, this dense, teeming, poetic coral reef of thought, this is just the first 22 pages. The entire book is like this. It's not a book you read so much as a world you inhabit. We've listened to the whispers of memory, the echoes of the familiar landscapes of our lives. But what if Earth, what if this beautiful blue marble just isn't enough? What if, as one extraordinary musician declared, if you find Earth boring, just the same old thing, come on, sign up for Outer Spaceways Incorporated. Our journey now veers off planet, into the dazzling, mythic orbit of a man who claimed Saturn as his home, Sun Ra. Sun Ra, born Herman Poole Blount in Alabama, or so the Earth records say, but he knew better. He'd been to Saturn, he said. He wasn't just a band leader, a pianist, a composer. He was a philosopher, a poet, a myth maker of the highest order. His music wasn't just jazz, it was a spaceship fueled by what he called space vibrations, designed to paint pictures of infinity, to chart alternative destinies for a people, for a planet he felt was often lacking. He wasn't just playing notes, he was building worlds. Worlds where ancient Egypt, science fiction, and the big band sound collided in a joyous, chaotic, and utterly unique explosion. This wasn't just about entertainment, it was a mission to save us from a reality he found too harsh. Long before the term became fashionable, Sun Ra was a pioneer of Afrofuturism. He understood the power of myth. In his film, he declares,
"I'm not real, I'm just like you. You don't exist in this society. If you did, your people wouldn't be seeking equal rights. You're not real. If you were, you'd have some status among the nations of the world. So we're both myths. I do not come to you as a reality. I come to you as the myth, because that's what black people are, myths."
Look at that idea, the myth as a declaration of existence. He was consciously constructing a new cosmology, a vibrant alternative to a history of oppression, a path paved with stardust and pharaohs. This idea of an artist creating an entire persona, a mythology, it's potent. Do you think an artist needs such a grand narrative, such a myth, to make a truly impactful, experimental music today? Or can the sounds alone carry the weight of worlds? Sun Ra seemed to believe the myth was inseparable from the music. It was the vessel. And what a vessel the orchestra was. Their concerts weren't just gigs, they were happenings, total environments. Imagine it, London 1970, a stage erupting with colour, with movement, with sound that seemed to come from every direction, every dimension. Dancers, elaborate costumes that would make a pharaoh blush, light shows painting in the air, films flickering like transmissions from another galaxy. This wasn't just music to be listened to, it was a world to be inhabited, if only for a few hours. A complete worldview, as David Toop describes it. Does this idea of performance as an immersive, all-encompassing environment connect to those ambient principles we touched on earlier? Music as atmosphere, as space to enter. Sun Ra believed in the literal power of sound. He spoke of musical notes rubbing together to create cosmic fire, of specific chords that could physically, emotionally, even spiritually transform the listener. Can sound really be that transformative? Can it alter reality, or at least our perception of it? He wasn't afraid of contradiction. One moment, the orchestra would be scaling the furthest reaches of avant-garde exploration. The next, they'd dive into what he cheekily called saloon wishy-washy music, or sound straight from a Chicago burlesque show. This baffled the serious European composers like Stockhausen, who couldn't quite grasp this gleeful disregard for stylistic purity. But for Sun Ra, it was all a part of the same cosmic joke, the same infinite tapestry. Why did he embrace these stark contrasts? What did that tell us about his universe? And perhaps about our own need for music to be neatly categorized? His myth wasn't confined to the stage. It spilled out, creating strange ripples in the real world. He tells this story, a strange story of being in Berlin. He says he was kidnapped, taken through the wall, gone for an hour, his band searching everywhere, and his kidnappers, they just wanted to ask questions about space. What kind of fuel on the ships, they asked. Then, back at the hotel, they televised him, asking again about space travel. Fact, fiction, with Ra, the border is always porous. And then another scene. The orchestra is in Moscow, invited to celebrate the flight of the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin. Think of it, this self-proclaimed man from Saturn, playing his cosmic tones in the heart of the Soviet Empire. For their greatest technological hero, the universe has a sense of humor. And while much of his music was a joyous, fiery explosion, there were other zones, quieter zones. Albums like Cosmic Tones for Mental Therapy or the heliocentric world of Sun Ra. Here the music becomes a vast, ambient space, noise and silence clashing in the void. This is where you hear the hummingbird cello, the electronic celestial footsteps of angels dancing on bass marimbas. This is music as a place, a lush, solarized rainforest. a cold domain of infinite darkness. It wasn't ambient music in the Eno sense of being ignorable. This was ambient music as a vibrant, sometimes unsettling, parallel dimension you were invited to explore. So where did this vision come from? From the highest and lowest of places. From ancient Egypt, of course, its majesty and mystery woven into the very fabric of the orchestra's look. This glorious, inspired, extraterrestrial Oxfam chic, but also from the pulpy pages of comic books. He said, I go by the Bible in a lot of things. It says God takes foolish things to dumbfound the world. So I consider comic books as foolish things, so I read all the comic books. The TV wristwatch, the atomic bomb, he saw the future in those cheap, colourful panels. He was a collage artist, taking the sacred and the profane, the ancient and the pulp, and creating a new holy book. He saw the world through a different lens, a playful lens. David Toop asks him if he feels optimistic. Sun Ra breaks this down. Mystic? He asks, and then a smile spreads across his face. Oh, mystic, you got optimistic. Another word to deal with. You can take a word and move it around into other planes. Optimistic, the eye of the mystic. Seeing the magic hidden in a simple word. This was his genius. And his dreams? His dreams were just as vast. He dreamt of a supermarket, the supermarket of the omniverse. No walls, everything was there. He saw socks glittering as if they were alive. $90. He saw pants, $180. And he stood there trying to decide what to buy from infinity. And then he woke up wondering if he'd paid for them. Would they have been in bed with him? He was a man who shopped for accessories in dreams of the cosmos. To trace the orbit of Sun Ra is to map a whole new sky. David Toop's chapter is a star chart connecting Ra not just to his own orchestra, but to composers, thinkers, prophets, and even fictional writers. It's a constellation of strange and beautiful bedfellows. This wasn't music in a vacuum. This was a nexus, a gravitational center, pulling ideas from every corner of culture. Film, like music, is a journey through time. We travel from one shot to the next, one scene to the next. We've journeyed through the personal atlas of memory, and we've soared through the dazzling, mythic orbit of Sun Ra. But what if the next journey isn't forward, or even outward, but inward? After the grand, cosmic roar of the universe, David Toop invites us on a different kind of voyage, a descent from the stars into the invisible currents that swirl around us every single day. The air itself thick with conversation, with signals, with ether talk. What if the real music wasn't in the concert hall, or out there in the heavens, but in here, hidden in the crackle, the hum, the overheard whispers of the city? In this chapter, Toop isn't looking through a telescope. He's tuning a receiver, his ear to the keyhole of the world, scanning for accidental broadcasts, for the poetry of the mundane. Imagine an artist, scanner, robbing Rimbaut, his ear pressed not to a seashell, but to a radio scanner, plucking conversations from the London air. He becomes a sonic voyeur, mapping the city, as he says, through its private words, its fragments of lives. A man buying bread, revealing his style, his sexual promise, in a single throwaway line. I always wear black to match the colour of my car. This is a provocative act, isn't it? This idea not as a gentle, passive wash, but as an active, sometimes intrusive, engagement with the sonic environment. It's impossible not to think of John Cage. Cage, the great liberator, who taught us to accept all sounds, the rumble of traffic, the cough in the concert hall, as part of the music. Rimbaut's acceptance of pure static as a valid outcome for a performance. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. It's pure Cage. It's an act of radical acceptance. Toop recalls one of Cage's famous Zen stories. He plays a record of a Buddhist service to his class. It begins with a chant, but soon settles into the repetitious beat of a single percussion instrument. After 15 minutes, a woman leaps to her feet and screams, "Take it off! I can't bear it any longer!" So Cage, ever the gentleman, lifts the needle. Immediately, a man on the other side of the room grows irate. "Why did you take it off?" he demands. "I was just getting interested." One person's unbearable noise is another's point of fascination. But where is the line? When does listening become eavesdropping? And in our hyper-connected world, is any space truly private anymore? Scanner's art lives in that charged, uncomfortable space. He samples the pauses, the static between words, the enormous gaps where the real, unsaid communication happens. In our age of total digital surveillance, where our voices and data are harvested constantly, Scanner's work from the early 90s feels less like an intrusion and more like a prophecy. He was simply showing us the ghosts that were already in the machine. But the ether isn't just voices, it's also rhythm, energy, and sometimes the most intense energy creates a need for its opposite. Toop points to a pivotal moment, born not from quiet contemplation, but from the sweat-soaked floors of the late 80s rave scene. This wasn't music for stroking your chin to, it was machine funk, forged in the basements of Chicago and Detroit. And so often, it was born from happy accidents. Future's Acid Tracks, the record that gave a name to a sound, was, as Marshall Jefferson tells it, just messing with this thing. The Roland 303, a little silver box designed to be a bassist for a solo guitarist, an utter commercial failure, repurposed by pioneers into a tool for brain-stabbing, thought-disrupting psychedelia. Larry Heard's washing machine was just random sounds running over a beat, a home experiment that sounded like a domestic appliance and changed the course of dance music. Is the soul of the music in the human who had the happy accident, or in the machine that made it possible? Can a machine have a soul, or does it just reflect our own back at us, sometimes in ways we don't expect? This embrace of the machine has noble lineage. You can draw a straight line back to Germany, to Kraftwerk, men who looked like civil servants, who hid behind their synthesizers and created a new folk music for the industrialized world. They found the romance in the motorway, the soul in the circuit board. From them, a new wave of techno artists inherited the idea that you didn't need a guitar to express emotion. You could do it with a filter sweep, a sequenced arpeggio. And from Germany, via the South Tyrol, came Giorgio Moroder. He took the synthesizer and gave it a hedonistic, European pulse. With Donna Summer, he didn't just create pop songs, he created soundscapes for desire. When asked why he extended Love to Love You Baby to such an epic length, he admitted it was a soundtrack for something other than dancing. He called the full version 17 minutes of orgasm theatre. It wasn't a song anymore, it was an environment, a denial of the 3-minute pop song, a liquid architecture of sound that DJs could build upon for hours. This blurring of the boundaries between music and noise, between performance and accident, had been explored before. Think of the improvising group AMM at the Roundhouse in 1967. Toop describes them as busily aimless, a man in a raincoat blowing soft flurries on a sax, a drummer assembling and disassembling his kit, 2 men wrestling with wires on the floor. The audience didn't even realize the performance had begun. It was music as a process, not a product. Fast forward to New Year's Day, 1994, at the very same Roundhouse. A different generation, but a similar spirit. Chantal Passamonde of Telepathic Fish describes a rainbow gathering sort of thing. It was freezing cold. For the first 7 hours, it was complete hell. People were lighting fires inside to stay warm, like something from Mad Max. But then, as Mixmaster Morris played, and huge projections billowed in the wind, magic happened. The building's powerful spirit was activated. She said it was miserable, as well as being special. The misery was part of the texture. In an age where music can be streamed perfectly to our headphones, anywhere in the world, have we lost something? Does music need a room, a shared space, a bit of discomfort even, to truly come alive? These parties, Telepathic Fish, Space-Time, were crucial. They were laboratories. Space-Time, held in a Cable Street warehouse, had a fountain in the middle, a bowl of terrapins, and an entrance fee of a bottle of wine. It was about conversation, interaction, a platform for live electronic music when the DJ was still just the person who filled in if the keyboard blew up. Telepathic Fish was even more beautifully chaotic. It grew from a squat party, inspired by a bizarre Rasta theory about feeding the 5,000 by swallowing a goldfish. For one party, they invited a German DJ named Dr. Atmo to play alongside a young Cornish artist named Richard D. James, Aphex twin. They rushed around Brixton, gathering mattresses from the street, making jelly, and creating an environment that felt like being in someone's living room. It was the antithesis of the super club. It was messy, human, and utterly committed. At the centre of so much of this activity was a psychedelic skinhead acid pixie, Mixmaster Morris, the irresistible force, a tireless advocate, DJ, an artist, and a conduit for a generation of crazy ones, making really crazy music. Morris is the thread that connects so many of these scenes. He played the Space-Time parties, the Roundhouse party, the first proper telepathic fish. What is the role of the tastemaker, the human filter in an age of infinite choice? Are they gatekeepers, or guides opening doors to new worlds? His collaboration with the German producer Pete Namlock, the album Dreamfish, remains one of the most beautifully and fully realised documents of the era. It's the sound of two minds merging through technology, creating a simmering, aquatic, and deeply emotional journey. It's not just background music, it's a world to be inhabited, a masterpiece of early ambient techno that proved the form could be as profound and moving as any other. Through Morris, we meet the Orb and the KLF, but before them, we must visit the Land of Oz. It's 1989. Paul Oakenfold's house night, Land of Oz, is raging in the main room of Heaven in London. Upstairs in the VIP bar, something else is happening. This is the birth of the chill out room. One night, the 70s prog rock guitarist Steve Hillage is wandering around and hears a track from his own meditative album, Rainbow Dome Music. He's amazed. This is hippie music, outlawed by punk, now being played next to the white heat of acid house. He introduces himself to the DJ, a young man named Alex Patterson. Patterson has no idea who he is. Patterson, working for EG Records, home of Eno and Hassell, was instead listening to early dub reggae, nascent UK techno, and drumless mixes from Chicago. He and a certain Jimmy Corti, soon to be of the KLF, were given the room every Monday. They would loop one sample for hours, playing it quietly, mixing in BBC sound effect records, home movies of ducks, Strauss waltzes, 10cc. We never used to play any drums in there, Patterson recalls. It was an attitude, not a genre. And from this primordial soup of sound, the Orb was born. Their first major statement was in the audacious single, a huge, ever-growing, pulsating brain that rules from the center of the ultra-world. It was a 20-minute journey that threw everything into the mix. Minnie Riperton's soulful ballad Loving You, relentless Tangerine Dream style arpeggios, heavy backbeats, church bells. It was sampledelic, irreverent, and utterly glorious. It was the sound of the chill-out room distilled onto vinyl. This sensibility was shared by groups like the Higher Intelligence Agency from Birmingham. They played their machines live, on the floor with the dancers, like a reggae sound system, creating a feedback loop of energy between the performers, the technology, and the crowd. And in London, Future Sound of London were creating their masterpiece, Life Forms. They weren't interested in escapist sci-fi fantasies. I think this is a weird place, said Gary Cobain, pointing to planet Earth. Their music was a soundtrack for that weirdness, a re-evaluation of the strange, organic, and digital world right under our noses. And so we arrive at the KLF, the situationist pranksters, the Stadium House superstars who also created the definitive ambient statement of the era, the album Chill Out. It's the ultimate act of sonic collage, a continuous 45-minute journey across a mythical American landscape. It's woven from the ghosts of music past, Acapulco's Stranger on the Shore, Fleetwood Mac's Albatross, Elvis Presley's In the Ghetto. These are mixed with field recordings of sheep, Tavant throat singers, passing trains, and snippets of radio preachers. When the KLF sample these sounds, are they just stealing, or are they creating a kind of sonic seance, summoning the ghosts of our collective memory to dance in a new landscape? The album came with a manifesto, Fact 3, ambient house is not new age music. Fact 15, ambient house is just a Monday night clique in the VIP bar at Heaven. Fact 16, ambient house is the first major movement of the 90s. All but partially true. Chill out is movement in the imagination. It's the experience of driving at night on an American highway, as Harold Norse describes that first Cage performance, in which neon signs and patches of noise from radios and automobiles flash into the distance. It's the final act of scanning the ether. It proves that ambient music isn't just about creating sound, but about listening. It's about finding the music that's already there, in the static, in the memories, in the space between the notes, and rearranging it to create a new world. A world you can get lost in just by closing your eyes. This chapter, like the ones before it, is not a straight line. It's a network, a web of strange and beautiful connections, a constellation of signals. Toop gathers the pioneers of the accidental, like Larry Heard and Future, who found magic by messing with things. He places them in conversation with the deliberate architects of machine soul, like Kraftwerk and Giorgio Moroder, who saw the future in a circuit board. He introduces us to the sonic voyeurs, like Scanner, and their philosophical ancestor, John Cage, who taught us that all sound is music. And then the keepers of the vibe, the people who built the spaces for this music to live, Chantal Passamonde of Telepathic Fish, the organisers of Spacetime, and Paul Oakenfold, who gave room to Alex Patterson and Jimmy Corti. And at the centre, the conduits, the human hubs, the psychedelic skinhead acid pixie Mixmaster Morris, and the producers who took these ideas to their logical conclusions. The Orb, the Higher Intelligence Agency, Future Sound of London, and the ultimate pranksters, the KLF. The very technology becomes a character. The failed Roland 303 finding its true voice, the radio scanner becoming a musical instrument, and the places as sacred, a warehouse on Cable Street, a squat in Brixton, the VIP bar at Heaven, and the freezing, hallowed ground of the Roundhouse. Each name, each place, a signal in the static, a note in the symphony of the ether. It's breathtaking, really, to look at the map Toop draws for us, and to remember this was 1995, before the internet had archived every record, every scene, every flyer, to connect the dots between a Chicago basement, a German studio, a hippie prog rock album, and a London VIP room required a different kind of searching. It required a life lived in record shops, in clubs, in conversation. David Toop wasn't just reporting on this world, he was part of it, a human node in the network, translating its secret language, revealing a hidden architecture of sound that was emerging all around us. His insight feels less like journalism and more like a form of clairvoyance. From the chatter of the airwaves, we plunge down into something older, something elemental. Before melody, before harmony, there was noise and silence. The raw materials of awe, of terror, of ritual. David Toop, in this chapter, Burial Rites, unearths the deep, often unsettling connections between sound, power, and the marking of life's great, fearsome transitions. The anthropologist Claude Levi-Strauss understood this. He saw how, across cultures, noise wasn't just random sound. It was a tool, a force. The Bororo people of Brazil, marking a death not with a hushed reverence, but with the clatter of rattling canes. A sound to bridge worlds, perhaps, or to ward off the lingering spirit. Shamanic instruments designed to imitate the growl of a jaguar, the shriek of a river monster, the bodily noises of a mythical beast. Noise, Toop suggests, following Levi-Strauss, often functions to draw attention to an anomaly, an eclipse, a death, the arrival of the uncanny. Think of the Charivari, those rough music processions in old Europe, shaming transgressors with a cacophony of pots, pans, and crude instruments. Was this just social disruption? Or was it something deeper, a ritual cleansing, a reassertion of order through chaos? And how do contemporary artists, particularly those working in darker ambient or noise genres, tap into this ancient power? Is their exploration of noise still a form of ritual? A way of confronting the unsettling, the anomalous in our own lives? Noise as power. Noise as intimidation. Consider Tipu's tiger, that astonishing, terrifying automaton from 18th century India, now residing in a London museum. A life-size tiger mauling a European soldier, its innards an organ mimicking the victim's cries and the tiger's roars. A stark, brutal piece of political sound art, an instrument of psychological warfare. The public, Toop notes, couldn't get enough of it, cranking its handle relentlessly. And in a remarkable echo across centuries, contemporary ambient artist Yusu, with her track Tipu's Tiger, co-opted this very imagery. She didn't just sample the tiger's growl or the soldier's mechanical scream. She evoked the idea of it, creating a sonic landscape that hums with the same uneasy power, the same sense of the machine as both spectacle and subtle threat. It's a resonant reminder of how potent this musical instrument remains, as image, as sound, and yes, as a lingering whisper of revenge. From Nero's noisemakers designed to applaud his own performances, to the amplified demagoguery of the 20th century, sound has always been a weapon, a tool of control. Are there modern musical equivalents to Tipu's Tiger? Sounds designed not to soothe, but to unsettle, to express rage, to claim territory. Then came the modernists, ears wide open to the changing soundscape of the industrial age. The Italian futurists, Marinetti, Russolo, they didn't just accept the noise of the city, they celebrated it. We must break out of this narrow circle of pure musical sounds, Russolo declared in his manifesto, The Art of Noises, and conquer the infinite variety of noise sounds. They built their own instruments, the intonarumori, to replicate the roar of engines, the shriek of trams, the crackle of electricity. Their concerts were often riots, the audience hurling insults, as the futurists unleashed their mechanical symphonies. They wanted music made from the very fabric of modern life. Looking back at their manifestos from the 1910s, do you think modern electronic music, with its vast sonic palette, has fulfilled their vision? Or did music and our relationship with noise go somewhere else entirely? But simply imitating noise wasn't enough for everyone. Enter Edgard Varese, a composer who saw Russolo's instruments as too limited, too literal. Varese wasn't interested in just recreating the sounds of the city. He wanted to compose with sound itself, its density, its texture, its movement in space. He called it organized sound. His influences were vast. Leonardo da Vinci, alchemy, the science of Helmholtz, non-Western music. He dreamt of new worlds in the minds of men, of music as a physical force. He heard a fire siren by the river and unconsciously wove its rising pitch into his composition Hyperprism. He spoke of deserts, not just physical landscapes, but that remote inner space where man is alone. This resonates deeply with certain ambient explorations, doesn't it? That journey into psychological landscapes, into solitude. Varese felt his ear, not systems or notation, was the final judge. He even believed non-Western listeners might be more attuned to his radical sound worlds than those conditioned by European traditions. It makes you wonder, does our musical conditioning still shape, perhaps even limit, how we react to unconventional sounds today? He famously yearned for instruments that could realize his complex vision, a frustration shared in a very different way by the jazz genius Charlie Parker, who once sought lessons from Varese, desperate to escape his own musical confines. Varese, the unsung hero of sonic exploration? Perhaps. And Verace's legacy, the futurist provocations, the ancient understanding of noise as power, they all echo loudly in the music that came after 1995. Noise music, industrial ambient, glitch, power electronics, artists taking these raw materials to new extremes, exploring not just disruption, but the very texture of sound itself, often in those inner spaces Verace spoke of. The tools have changed, from intono amore to laptops, but the quest to organise or unleash the chaos continues. Silence. And then from that silence, a new world is conjured. Not in the concert hall, not in the open air, but here, in this room, the recording studio. The space where sound is not merely captured, but sculpted, stretched, shattered and reborn. David Toop, in his chapter, Content in a Void, invites us into this alchemical chamber where technology meets imagination and sometimes even madness. Joe Meek was a pioneering and eccentric record producer who operated from his home studio at 304 Holloway Road, Islington, London, in a flat above a leather goods store. Meek's first major success from his studio was with John Layton's Johnny Remember Me in 1961, which topped the UK singles chart. He achieved even greater international fame with the instrumental Telstar in 1962, a song he wrote and produced himself, which became a #1 hit in both the UK and the US. The first bedroom producer, perhaps. His studio was known for his unconventional techniques and the otherworldly sounds he created. Meek was famously at odds with his landlady, Violet Shenton, who lived on the floor below and often complained about the noise by banging on her ceiling with a broom, to which Meek would respond by turning up the volume. A private plaque now marks the Holloway Road location in his honour. Toop also looks to Brian Wilson, painting his teenage symphonies to God with the colours of the mixing desk. And in Jamaica, two wizards, Lee Scratch Perry and King Tubby, were transforming the studio into a double laboratory, a sonic TARDIS, bending time and space with echo and reverb. These auteurs of atmosphere push the boundaries of sound, creating new and exciting auditory worlds. The producer, the engineer, suddenly they were central creative forces, sometimes even eclipsing the artist whose name was on the record. How did this happen, and what did it mean for the very idea of a song? This power to construct, to manipulate, leads us into a strange hall of mirrors, into the realm of artifice, of illusion. Toop recounts a dream, Elvis Presley, fit and young, fronting Mixmaster Morris's otherworldly outfit in some desolate club. The sound is both familiar and utterly strange, a construct of the sleeping mind. But the waking world is just as weird. Think of the great phantoms of American entertainment, the billionaire Howard Hughes, a ghost in his own life, ruling an empire by remote control, or the singer Dean Martin, whose wife said he was always content in a void. These men, living in a kind of self-imposed ambient state, show us that the line between presence and absence, reality and illusion, has always been blurry. And this blurriness, this sense of atmosphere as content, became a signature style of the 1980s. You can see it in the films of Michael Mann. Look at Thief, or his 1983 film, The Keep. The city at night becomes a deep blue aquascape, the narrative carried by the relentless shimmering sequencer music of Tangerine Dream. You can hear it in the epic electronic tapestries of Vangelis, or the cool, stylish moods of Sard. It's music as humidity, as colour, as feeling. It's the sound of those oppositional conflicts between chaos and order, passion and detachment, finding a strange, beautiful balance, a holographic world you could step into. but the studio can conjure more literal phantoms. Think of those Dead Zone duets. This is where it gets really strange. This technological body snatching. Natalie Cole singing a duet with a video projection of her long-departed father, Nat. Radio DJs splicing Elvis and Linda Ronstadt together. Patsy Cline and Jim Reeves, both killed in plane crashes, brought back to sing One More Heartbreaker. Hank Williams, Buddy Holly, their music reanimated, reclothed in strings and backing vocals decades after their passing. And then there's the jazz world. Alice Coltrane adding lush Hollywood strings to the fiery spiritual recordings of her late husband, John Coltrane. The purists were horrified. His drummer, Rashid Ali, said it was like rewriting the Bible. But no one's ghost has been worked over more than Jimi Hendrix. He dreamed of expanding his sound, of conducting big band, not of violins, but of competent musicians, to paint pictures of Earth and space. But he died before he could. And so, the producers moved in. Albums like Crash Landing were built from scraps, with session musicians meticulously copying and pasting notes to finish his solos. The result? The tightest, dullest records Hendrix never made. This desire to complete the unfinished, to imagine what might have been, created its own mythology. The fabled jams between Hendrix and Miles Davis. The collaboration between Alice Coltrane and Carlos Santana on Illuminations, both trying to channel the spirit of John Coltrane through electric guitars and ecstatic devotion. And then there's John McLaughlin's incredible Devotion album, a masterpiece of stoned heavy metal jazz produced by Alan Douglas, the same man who would later reconstruct Hendrix. It's a web of connections, of ghosts in the machine. Is it a tribute or a kind of technological grave robbing? It makes you question everything you thought was real about the music you love. While Miles Davis was listening to Hendrix and Sly Stone, he was also, strangely, investigating this man, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, the German composer who saw himself not as a writer of music, but as a kind of cosmic radio receiver. He dreamed of a music of the whole world, and in works like Telemusic and Hymnen, he made it happen. He took the international gibberish of shortwave transmissions, the sound of radio static, and mixed it with recordings from across the globe, Africa, Japan, Vietnam, and electronic sounds. He drew a parallel between the stream of consciousness of the human mind and the act of tuning a radio. For Stockhausen, the composer was a satellite dish, absorbing and transmitting the sounds of the planet. But his utopian vision had a darker, more fanatical side. He believed that our animal body, with its messy, biological rhythms, was holding back human evolution, the thump of the heartbeat, the pulse of the dance floor. These he thought would have to go. He proposed micro-rhythms that would tune us into higher beings, preparing us for transportation across space on beams of light. It's a cold, techno vision, a universe of pure, disembodied intellect, a total rejection of the funk. And yet, you can hear the strange, layered, cliché-free spaces of Stockhausen in the electric universe of Miles Davis's On the Corner. It's another ghost in the machine, a secret connection you would never expect. And he woke again, thinking he had dreamed. Errol strapping him to a G-Web in Babylon Rocker, and then the long pulse of Zion dub. That's from William Gibson's Neuromancer, and it captures perfectly the revolutionary power that came out of Jamaica, the power of dub. Nowhere was the deconstruction of reality more potent than in the hands of its two great wizards. The first was King Tubby. He was an engineer cutting records, and one day, by accident, he discovered something magical. He dropped the vocal from a track, leaving just the raw, skeletal rhythm. And then, with his implements of sound, the echo, the reverb, the EQ, he began to play the mixing desk itself. He launched the bass and drums into outer space. The sound of dub was born in his tiny studio in a maze of zinc-fenced yards in Kingston. The other wizard was Lee Scratch Perry. For Perry, the studio wasn't a machine. It was a living, spiritual organism, an ark, a secret laboratory. He said he put his mind into the machine. The electricity was the eye, the water was the life. He was a magician, an Old Testament prophet, pulling inspiration from Jamaican folklore, the Bible, comic books, and spaghetti westerns. In his Black Ark studio, he created some of the most innovative, supernatural music of the 20th century. Junior Mervin's Police and Thieves, Max Romeo's War in a Babylon. He would drop ghostly voices, rattling percussion, and reptilian hisses into the mix, creating vast, three-dimensional sound sculptures. This wasn't just remixing. This was the sound of reality being taken apart and put back together again, stranger and more beautiful than before. And that echo from Jamaica travelled. In London, producer Adrian Sherwood took dub even deeper into the echo chamber, creating epic, psychedelic soundscapes with artists like Prince Farai and his own group, African Head Charge. Their album, My Life in a Hole in the Ground, was a direct, laughing response to another landmark record. That record was 1981's My Life in the Bush of Ghosts by Brian Eno and David Byrne. The project began as a collaboration with the visionary trumpeter and composer John Hassell, who was developing his fourth world concept, a coffee-coloured classical music of the future. They planned to invent a faux tribe, a kind of fictional ethnography. The final album, made by Byrne and Eno, took a different path. They took radio broadcasts, evangelists, talk show hosts, Lebanese mountain singers, and laid them over polyrhythmic, Fela Kuti-inspired funk grooves. It was a collage of found sounds, a map of a new kind of world, and its influence was massive. The producers of Public Enemy said it was a direct inspiration for their own dense, chaotic sound collages. In a way, it fulfilled the promise of a film like Jean-Luc Godard's 1+1, which shows the Rolling Stones endlessly wrestling one song into existence. It revealed that a piece of music on a multi-track tape isn't one thing. It's a collection of possibilities, a library of ghosts waiting to be rearranged. This journey from the hard copy of analog tape to the soft, endlessly malleable world of digital recording changed everything. Suddenly, music wasn't a fixed object, it was data. All that is solid melts into ether. And what of us, the listeners, in this world of constructed sound? Brian Eno, ever the provocateur, tells a story. He was becoming frustrated with computers in the studio, with their cautious, perfectionistic way of working. So he did an experiment. He took a random field recording from Hyde Park, cars, dogs, people, and he decided to learn it, like a piece of music. He listened over and over until the arbitrary sequence of events became connected, meaningful. Oh yeah, that car. And then the dog barks. Brilliant. It demonstrates a crucial idea. Listening isn't passive. It's an active construction of meaning. It suggests that any sound can become music if we just decide to listen to it that way. It's about learning to find the content in the void. The studio as the primary instrument, the echoes of dub, the art of the remix. These ideas, so vividly captured by Toop in 1995, have only amplified. The move to the virtual digital studio was the next step. The laptop became the new Black Ark, the tools for sonic alchemy more accessible than ever. And you can hear that legacy today. You hear it in the ghostly, rain-slicked landscapes of artists like Burial, who builds his music from the crackle of vinyl and half-remembered samples of video games and R&B. You hear it in the fractured, beautiful noise of Finesse, who uses the digital glitch as a brushstroke, or in the work of Oneotrix Point Never, who creates a kind of sonic archaeology, collaging forgotten synthesizer sounds into new, eerie, and deeply emotional forms. The virtual became our new reality. From the constructed realities of the studio, we step out into the world where the wind writes its own symphonies in the grass, where the rain drums rhythms on a tin roof, where the very earth seems to hum with a hidden music. This chapter, Altered States 1, Landscape, invites us to listen to the world as if it were music, and explore how music, in turn, can become a landscape for the mind. Join me as we continue our journey through David Toop's incredible book on ambient music, Ocean of Sound. Can a place sing? Can a landscape have a voice? The writer and recordist Louis Sarno thought so. He heard a song on the radio in Amsterdam, the liquid polyphony of Barbanjeel pygmy singing, and it drew him to the heart of Africa. But when he got there, he did something strange. He didn't just point a microphone at the singers. He sat back, hidden in the trees, and captured the music as it was meant to be heard, as part of a wider world, woven into the sound of insects, birds, and the faint throbbing of a drum that seemed to merge with the pulse of the night itself. Brian Eno had a similar epiphany in Ghana. He sat on a patio with headphones on, his microphone catching the whole sound field, and in that moment, the disparate sounds, the chatter, the insects, the distant traffic, clustered together in his ears. They became music. This idea that music can be a kind of landscape painting with sound, it runs through the work of so many artists. Think of the composer Harold Budd. He grew up in a dog-water town in the Mojave Desert, a place where you could walk forever and hear, as he says, the sound of utterly nothing at all. And his music is filled with that silence, that shimmering heat, haunted by the ghosts of a country song drifting across the Mexican border on the radio. Or look at the producer Daniel Lanois. He finds his soundscapes in the ghosts of old castles and warehouses, but also in the fire and smoke of his Canadian industrial childhood. The hydro lines cutting through the wilderness, like a divine haircut, the flattened pennies on the railway tracks. These are his instruments. These artists teach us that a place isn't just a location, it's a resonance, a feeling, an atmosphere, and music is a way to bottle it. Sometimes, the most profound ideas arrive not with a thunderclap, but with a whisper, an accident. Brian Eno, recovering from being hit by a taxi, he's lying in bed, barely able to move. A friend has left a record of 18th century harp music. He puts it on, but the volume is too low. One channel is broken. He's too weak to fix it. The rain falls outside, the music plays softly inside, and the two begin to merge, to become one. And in that moment of enforced, gentle listening, a concept crystallized, music not as a foreground event demanding your attention, but as part of the environment itself. Music you could enter, like a room, like a landscape. It required a different way of hearing, unfocused, peripheral. It was, he said, music that allowed you to hear the silence. This was the birth of ambient music in its modern sense. But was it just this one accident? Or was it an idea whose time had come? A moment when our relationship with sound, shaped by new technologies and new ways of living, was ready for a change. This idea of music opening up, becoming less fixed, was exploding in another part of the forest entirely, in the fervent crucible of free improvisation. In the 1960s and 70s, musicians like the groups AMM in Britain and the Art Ensemble of Chicago, or individuals like the nomadic trumpeter Don Cherry and the guitarist Derek Bailey, were dismantling the old structures. It was a musical revolution, but it was also a political one. They embraced chants, noise, and silence. They put down their virtuoso instruments and picked up little instruments, bells, shakers, children's toys, radios, anything that could make a sound. It was a drive to democratize music, to break the star system, to create a kind of community in sound. The guitarist Derek Bailey said the magic came from the friction of ill-fitting elements. When you rub them together, he said, you produce a pearl. And this wasn't just happening in jazz. The composer Ennio Morricone was part of an Italian improvisation group. It was a moment when all the boundaries seemed to dissolve. And it happened at the exact same time that thinkers like Roland Barthes and Umberto Eco were developing the science of signs, semiotics. They were showing us that everything, a wrestling match, a toy, a tap dance, was a form of language. The improvisers were proving it. They were creating a new musical language, where every sound, every gesture, every silence was part of the story. The trumpeter Leo Smith, for instance, wasn't just playing jazz. He was continuing a tradition rooted in Africa of children making music from washboards and tin cans. It was a radical reclaiming of what music could be. And what of silence? Is it merely just the absence of sound? Or is it, as the great John Cage taught us, a canvas upon which the world paints its own subtle symphonies? His famous piece, 433, wasn't about absolute silence. He knew that was impossible. He'd been in a soundproof anechoic chamber and heard only the high singing of his nervous system and the low pulsing of his blood. No, 433 was a frame, an invitation to listen to the unintentional music of the environment around you. He explored this delicate interplay of sound and its decay in his works for prepared piano, where he placed bolts, screws, and rubber between the strings, transforming the instrument into a strange, beautiful percussion orchestra, sounding at times like a Javanese gamelan. He was inspired by Zen Buddhism, by the idea of letting things be what they are. And this brings us to Japan, a culture that has, for centuries, cultivated an appreciation for these subtleties. Look at this beautiful thing, the suikenkutsu. It's a buried water chime, an upturned pot beneath a stone basin. Water drips, and from below comes a delicate, random, bell-like tone. It was designed, as one sound artist says, to help you hear the silence. This aesthetic, which writer Junichiro Tanizaki celebrated in his beautiful essay, In Praise of Shadows, sees a profound beauty in things that are quiet, fleeting, and imperfect. It's a sensibility where nature and technology, noise and silence, can coexist. It's why Buddhist priests in Japan might pray for worn-out microchips. Everything is Buddha. Everything has a spirit. What can we, in the often noisier West, learn from this profound appreciation, the quiet and the ephemeral? These seeds, the primacy of environmental sound, music as a sound field, the embrace of quietude, the profound influence of Japanese aesthetics, the spirit of improvisation, they all blossomed spectacularly after 1995. Field recording, once a specialist tool for ethnographers, became an art form in its own right, with artists like Chris Watson capturing the hidden sounds of glaciers and vultures. The lowercase movement, pioneered by artists like Steve Roden, invited us to listen to the almost inaudible, to the sound of a contact microphone on a piece of paper. In Japan, artists like Toshiya Tsunoda and Akio Suzuki continued to explore the relationship between sound, space, and place with incredible sensitivity. The journey into sound as landscape and landscape as sound continues to unfold in myriad, fascinating ways. The world is always singing, if only we learn how to listen. What are your own experiences with these sonic landscapes? Brian Eno traces the idea of ambient music to a moment of hearing faint harp music blending with the sounds of rain after an accident. What's the quietest or most subtle sound experience that has ever truly stuck with you, and why? This chapter connects Harold Budd's music to the silence of the Mojave Desert and Daniel Lanois to the industrial echoes of Canada. Do you associate certain types of ambient music with specific landscapes or places? Which ones come to mind? Japan has traditions that cherish deep silence, like the suikenkutsu, alongside a culture that also produces extreme noise music. Do you find yourself drawn to both very loud and very quiet musical experiences, or do you lean towards one extreme? What's the appeal for you? Share your soundings, your landscapes in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, it goes a long way to supporting the channel. This story is the story of a musician who dreamed of possible musics, possible cultures, born from the improbable marriage of the ancient and the hyper-modern. Welcome to the fourth world, a term, a concept, a sound world conjured up by the extraordinary John Hassell. John Hassell, a trumpeter, yes, but also a cartographer of the imagination. His fourth world wasn't a place you could find on any existing globe. It was a sound, a sensibility, a fusion, the primitive, the ancient rhythms, the timeless melodies of traditional cultures, meeting the future, the cutting edge of electronic technology, the global hum of the information age. He wasn't just interested in polite pastiche. This was about creating something new, something hybrid, that valued fragments, unexpected juxtapositions, the exotic, even the erotic. It was, as David Toop describes, a quest for a balance between native identity and the global identity, without diluting either. As global cultures continue to intermingle at an ever-accelerating pace, this idea of the fourth world seems like the premonition of a visionary, perhaps. How do you build such a world? For Hassell, technology was a key. Sampling, looping, digital delays, pitch shifting, these weren't just tools, they were portals. He spoke of blue screening sound, like a filmmaker, layering different realities, taking a sound from its original context, a fragment of raga, the clang of a gamelan, the cry of a distant voice, and placing it into an entirely new sonic landscape. His own trumpet sound, famously, was a product of this alchemy. After studying with the Indian vocal master, Pandit Pranath, he developed a technique that made his instruments sing, almost like a human voice, or a conch shell echoing from some forgotten shore. The mistaken conclusion, he said, is that it's all done with mirrors, not meat. It was a profound fusion of breath, tradition, and technological enhancements. How has this ability of technology to sample, to decontextualize and recontextualize, changed our relationship with musical traditions? Is it a form of creative dialogue, or does it risk becoming a kind of sonic tourism, a superficial lifting of sounds, without understanding their roots? Hassell's fourth world was also a reaction against what he saw as the ascetic face of much serious Western music. He embraced sensuality, lush atmospheres, a profound sense of beauty, even what Toop calls post-orgasmic music. The beautiful, Hassell declared, is defined here as being that which drags you most profoundly without any abstract constructs. This connects, perhaps, to the older tradition of exotica in music. Yamar Sumac, with her incredible vocal range, Les Baxter creating imaginary jungle soundscapes, or Duke Ellington's band with Juan Tizol Bakif, a piece born more from imagination than from any direct experience of its supposed locale. Its music as a portal to a dream, a fiction, is this embrace of sensuality, of the lushly atmospheric, an overlooked dimension in much ambient and electronic music, a necessary counterpoint to the purely cerebral or the starkly minimalist. Toop concludes his exploration of Hassell's world with a series of vivid, almost cinematic vignettes. A sacred shrine in Japan, its ancient serenity punctuated by the sounds of synthesizers. A hotel lobby in Kobe, where Japanese youth, dressed in the latest global fashions, are lost in rhythms of Jamaican raga. These are snapshots of our interconnected, often contradictory modern world. A world where, as Hassell suggested, the map might be redrawn by interest, by affinity, rather than by old geographical or cultural borders. Music and culture today live in this redrawn world and have started to reflect these strange, beautiful, sometimes jarring juxtapositions of our globalized culture. Can it offer a path towards a more intuitive, improvised way of being in this complex world? Hassell's fourth world concept, his pioneering use of sampling and textural layering, became a profound influence on so much ambient, electronic, and what we now call world fusion music after 1995. The tools for creating these hybrid soundscapes became more accessible, the global palette of sounds even wider, but the questions he raised about authenticity, about respectful cultural exchange, about the very nature of musical identity in a connected world, they continue to resonate, perhaps now more than ever. The fourth world is a space of constant creation, of imaginative leaps. What are your own encounters with these hybrid soundscapes? John Hassell spoke of creating possible musics by fusing sounds from different cultures with technology. What's the most surprising or the most effective musical fusion you've ever heard? What made it work for you? From the rich, often dense tapestries of the fourth world, we shift our gaze. We move towards a different kind of altered state, one born from the very essence of sound itself, stripped bare, extended, held, until it becomes something else, a place of pure tone, of infinite duration. Welcome as David Toop guides us through the crystal world of minimalism. Lamonte Young, a name that resonates with a singular, unwavering focus. He heard music in the drone of the wind through the Idaho telephone wires of his childhood, in the hum of power plants. He found kinship in the sustained tones of Indian classical music, the stately pace of Japanese gagaku. His minimalism wasn't about less for less's sake. It was about that which is created with the minimum of means to achieve the maximum effect. His piece, Composition 1961, draw a straight line and follow it, an instruction, a philosophy. His dream houses, physical spaces where tones would sound continuously, for days, months, years, evolving like a living organism, a place where listeners could immerse themselves, lose themselves in the pure physicality of vibration. John Hassell described Jung's music as creating a crystalline world, but this kind of music, these eternal drones, are they boring or are they transcendent? What kind of listening do they demand of us? And what is the appeal of a musical installation that aims for permanence, for a sound that never truly ends? This immersion into the nature of tone also led Jung and his contemporary, Terry Riley, to question the very tuning of Western music. They moved away from the compromise of 12-tone equal temperament, our familiar piano scale, towards just intonation, a system based on the pure, natural harmonic ratios found in the universe. It was a search for a deeper connection with the physicality of sound, for purer, more resonant harmonies, again influenced by the microtonal subtleties of Indian music, where the notes between the notes sing. Harry Partch, that wonderful American iconoclast, had railed against the tyranny of equal temperament decades earlier, building his own extraordinary instruments to play the music he heard in his head. Can we, with our ears so accustomed to the piano's tuning, truly hear the difference? Does tuning into these natural, ancient ratios create a different feeling, a different resonance within us? This era of intense sonic exploration, the early 1960s, was also the dawn of accessible electronic music, particularly tape manipulation. And here, David Toop shines a light on a crucial, often overlooked figure, Richard Maxfield, an alchemist of tape, meticulously splicing, processing environmental sounds, the hiss of steam radiators in his piece Steam 4, creating intricate electronic soundscapes and complex montages. Maxfield, whose classes influenced Terry Riley, was part of that early psychedelic culture, exploring altered states through sound and other means. Riley's own early tape loop pieces, like the evocatively titled Mescaline Mix, were born from this ferment, this explicit connection between early minimalism, tape experiments, and psychedelic experiences. How crucial was it in shaping what we now think of as ambient or trance-inducing sound? And why are pioneers like Maxfield, or even Young to some extent, less household names than some of their contemporaries? Were their visions too radical, too uncompromising? Terry Riley took these ideas of duration, repetition, and improvisation into a more communal, almost ritualistic space. His all-night concerts at the Philadelphia College of Art in the late 1960s became legendary. People would bring sleeping bags, drift in and out of sleep, immersing themselves for hours in his flowing, modal, tape-delayed soundscapes. He sought, he said, a kind of ecstasy through these extended musical journeys. It was music that bridged classical minimalism, jazz improvisation, and a psychedelic rock sensibility. What is the value of experiencing music over such vast stretches of time? Does it allow for a different kind of listening, a deeper immersion, perhaps even a transformation of consciousness? And how does this relate to modern festival culture, or the long-form ambient DJ sets that can last for hours? The crystal world of Lamonte Young and Terry Riley, does it shatter when it hits the digital age? Or does it simply refract? Their ambition of infinite duration and the purity of the drone were prophecies. We find this profound inheritance in the artists who followed. Stars of the Lids, the tired sounds of Stars of the Lid, is the sound of Young's dream houses cut adrift. The eternal note turned to gauze, a slow, oceanic drift through twilight. Then, Tim Hecker's Radio Amor. He takes the static, the hiss of tape alchemy, and makes it monumental. It's the sound of the radio signal degrading across vast distances, a beautiful buzzing ruin. The physical vibration of the tone is now a digital decay. Perhaps the most poignant echo is in William Basinski's The Disintegration Loops. Basinski played old tape, and as the sonic memory, the ferric oxide, flaked away, the music became a document of its own destruction. What we hear is not a composition of sound, but a record of sound's erosion, a melody, then a ghost. Only silence remains, a contemplation of loss. The search for just intonation that Parch demanded persists, now aided by the cold, clean precision of the computer. Sura Divaci's Cantus des Cant offers instruments, organ, synthesizers, tuned with a fierce, almost monistic dedication to natural harmonic ratios. The sensation is one of being bathed in an ancient, vibrating light. And Callie Malone's Does Spring Hide Its Joy is a patient, geological work that tunnels deep into these alternative tunings. The sound is immense, solemn, and unmoving. The crystalline world is no longer a physical place. It's everywhere. Its repetitive DNA is woven into every ambient wave. It's the long afterlife of that single held note, still sounding, still forcing us to ask, what is pure sound, and what does it demand of the soul? Minimalism's motif is woven into countless forms of electronic music. The exploration of microtonality and alternative tunings continues, aided by digital tools. The crystal world keeps refracting new light. From the organic, timeless drones of the crystal world, we turn to the click, the whir, the insistent pulse of the inorganic, the machine, not as a mere tool, but as a collaborator, a performer, perhaps even a composer in its own right. David Toop, in this chapter, Altered States 4, Machine, invites us to consider the soul of the automation and how its rhythms have come to define so much of our sonic landscape. Technology, it promises connection, a melting of borders, as the composer Yuichi Sakamoto dreamt with his outer nationalism, yet it can also create a curious distance. Sakamoto famously once sent a fax during a performance. The human performer, sometimes reduced to an operator, while the machines sing their complex songs. Is something lost in this exchange, or is a new kind of global symphony being born, where the human touch is just one element in a vast, interconnected network? This tension, this balance between human agency and machine precision, it's a central theme in the music of our time. But long before the computer, before the synthesizer, there is Erik Satie, an enigmatic figure in his velvet suit. Toop sees him as a true precursor to machine music, his almost fanatically methodical lifestyle, his embrace of mechanistic elements, the typewriter, the siren, the pistol shots in his ballet parade. And then there's Vexations, a brief piece to be repeated, according to Satie, 840 times. A task for a machine, perhaps, more than a human. Or his radical concept of musique d'emblement, furniture music. Sound designed not to be listened to intently, but to fill silences, to be part of the environment, like a pattern on the wallpaper. At its premiere, the story goes, the audience fell silent, listening respectfully. Satie was furious. They were meant to ignore it, to talk, to mingle. Was this a joke? This furniture music? Or was it a profound insight into how sound could function in our lives, a serious precursor to ambient music? How does it relate to the background hum that fills so many of our modern spaces? If Satie was the eccentric uncle of machine music, and Kraftwerk were its cool, precise, and utterly committed high priests, from Dusseldorf they didn't just use machines, they became them, embodying the machine aesthetic. Repetition, synthesized textures, vocoded voices, themes of technology, travel, communication. Ralph Hutter spoke of machines dancing, of their studio as a toy room, of creating new Volksmusik, a people's music, rooted not in pastoral tradition, but in the technological present. They'd let a drum machine play on stage while they joined the dancers. Their music was conceived as a continuous flow, fade in and fade out, rather than being dramatic, reflecting on the constant motion of modern life. They absorbed the sounds of everyday technology, the hum of the autobahn, the click of a Geiger counter, the synthesized voice of the vocoder. What was so revolutionary about their sound, their image, and how does it hold up today in a world saturated with electronic music? There's a utopian thread here, Sakamoto's outer nationalism, a desire for music to melt cultural divisions. Kraftwerk, seeking to forge a new German cultural identity, free from the shadows of the past, seeing technology as a force for connection. This idea of music as a continuous flow, as functional, as environmental, it links back directly to Satie's furniture music, and it points directly towards the core tenets of ambient. Music not just for contemplation, but for living with, for housekeeping, as Hutter suggested. And now we arrive at a collision, a sound born from two impossibly distant points. On one side, the gentle, spectral presence of Satie, his furniture music, music designed not to be heard, but to disappear, to be ignored, a subtle backdrop to living. His legacy is functional ambient, the environmental soundscapes of Hiroshi Ishimura, music created ultimately to free the mind by occupying the periphery. It's the sound of letting go. On the other, the insistent rhythmic precision of Kraftwerk, the utopian dream of the man-machine. Their sequenced pulse, that clean, cold logic, became the very heartbeat of electronic music, a mechanical choreography. Their legacy is programmed to precision. The hyper-mechanistic arpeggios of Caterina Barbieri, music that sounds mathematically perfect, but utterly ecstatic. In the 21st century, these two forces merge. We have the generative dream, repetition like Saties, but driven by the digital certainty of the algorithm like Kraftwerk. The question is no longer who is performing, but what kind of listening are we performing? Are we letting the machine compose our environment? And if the music disappears into the background, does it not paradoxically become the most important thing of all? From the logic of the circuit, the rhythm of the gear, we now drift. We slip the clutch of waking consciousness and float into a different kind of altered state, the world of dreams, not just as a passive recipient of strange visions, but as an active participant, a composer even. David Toop, in this chapter, Lucid Dreaming, tunes into the music born from the twilight realms of sleep. Long before our modern understanding, the Marquis de Harvey de Sandens, back in 1867, was using mechanical music boxes to try and steer his dreams towards, shall we say, specific amorous encounters. But fast forward to the late 20th century, and a young Cornish electronic trickster, Richard James, Aphex twin, took this idea of dream composition into entirely new dimensions. He spoke of lucid dreaming, being aware, even directive, within his dreams, and using that state to conjure melodies, textures, entire sonic architectures. Imagine waking with a fully formed piece of music, a gift from the subconscious. He described the challenge of translating these dream sounds accurately into the waking world, the frustration of their fleeting perfection. His selected ambient works Volume 2, described by one human as like standing in a power station on acid, feels like a direct transmission from these inner worlds. This idea of composing in your sleep, is it a rare gift, a unique phenomenon, or do many artists in different ways draw from that deep well of dream inspiration? And how does technology, the synthesizer, the sampler, help capture these ethereal, half-remembered melodies? Aphex Twin, with a characteristic wryness, coined the term bedroom bores for his new wave of electronic musicians. But there was nothing boring about the sounds they were creating. This was a revolution. No longer did you need the gleaming, expensive temples of professional studios. With affordable technology, an Atari ST, a few bits of MIDI gear, you could conjure up entire symphonies from your bedroom, your attic. And with this DIY ethos came a new aesthetic, a rejection of polish, of sterile perfection. Artists like Aphex Twin, Uzik, LFO, 808 State, they embraced the dirtier sound, the distortion, the happy accidents that came from pushing their limited gear to its limits. 808 State spoke of alchemy, of getting your hands in the mud. Why this embrace of imperfection? What emotional or aesthetic qualities does that grit, that rawness offer that perfectly polished production might lack? Do you find yourself drawn to electronic music that sounds clean and pristine, or that wears its imperfections proudly? And as these new sounds blossomed in Europe, they were often cross-pollinating with transmissions from across the Atlantic. From Detroit, the birthplace of techno, Juan Atkins, Derek May, Kevin Saunderson, pioneers drawing on Kraftwerk, on George Clinton's Afro-futuristic funk, on the futuristic ideas of Alvin Toffler. Kirk DiGiorgio described how the very landscape of Detroit, that stark contrast between glittering corporate towers and widespread urban decay, shaped the music's soul, a melancholy feel, a coldness, but also a yearning, a futuristic pulse. Can you hear a city in its music? How important is that social, economic, and physical context to understanding the emotional core of genres like Detroit techno? This techno virus, this beautiful rhythmic contagion spread rapidly to the UK, Germany, Belgium. 1,000 bedroom studios bloomed. New labels, new substyles, emerged almost daily, a vibrant, decentralized ecosystem, largely independent of the major record labels. Think of Pete Nanlook with his Fax label, releasing a torrent of CDs, often in limited editions, directly to a dedicated audience. A kind of cottage industrialization of music. He rejected the Ambient label, saying his music came from the heart, inspired by playing guitar to the sound of water in Turkey, with nature as his main teacher. A beautiful paradox for an electronic pioneer. This rapid proliferation, this fire hose of creativity, was at the beginning of the overwhelming ocean of music we navigate today. And how did artists then, and how do they now, manage to make their signal heard above the noise? The geography of music production has changed. The scale shifted radically, away from the gleaming, soundproof cathedral of the studio into the bedroom. It was an architecture of intimacy, an accidental act of democratization. And with that shift, the aesthetic mandate changed too. We embraced the grit, the sound of the cheap machine, the noise floor of the home recorder, the hiccup over the flawless, sterile sheen of the professional sound. This dream logic, this focus on translating internal landscapes, didn't vanish with the millennium. It passed the torch. From Aphex Twin's complex, often fractal beat structures, we trace a direct line to the jazz-influenced psychedelic abstractions of Flying Lotus and the deconstructed, unsettling sonic experiments of Arca. Even the dizzying complexity of Venetian snares carries that original flame. This rejection of sterile perfection found another expression in the lo-fi house movement, an artist like Hiroko S, who let the noise and the crud of the recording process become the very subject of the music itself. And further still, the global phenomenon of lo-fi hip-hop, built entirely upon the comfort and crackle of that domestic, imperfect sound. This newly empowered cottage industry needed no central market. The internet arrived, not just as a distribution channel, but as an infinite ocean of exchange, amplifying those decentralized sounds 1,000-fold. The gatekeepers, the old authorities, they simply dissolved. And the tradition of that swift, decentralized cottage industrialization, championed by Pete Namlook's Fax label and the cross-pollination of 808 States experimentalism, continues through modern hubs like the pioneering Hyperdub Records and the purely immersive ambient work released by Astral Industries. In that fertile, boundless space where the hard, forward pulse of techno still meets the endless static shimmer of ambient, the structures of the subconscious continued to be built. The dream logic, it seems, found a perfect, fluid medium. It was finally free of the laws of physics, floating forever in the digital deep. From the inner landscape of the dream, we step out into the tangible world. The world that was here long before music, long before us. Nature, a roaring, whispering, thrumming symphony of existence. But in our technological age, where does nature end and our perception, our reconstruction of it begin? David Toop, in this chapter, invites us to listen to the wild heart of sound. For centuries, so much of music's nature was unheard, beyond the range of our senses. The intricate sonar ballet of bats, a secret language in the dark, the deep resonant songs of humpback whales, echoing across oceans, unheard until technology gave us the ears to listen beneath the waves. Roger Payne's recordings, when they finally surfaced, didn't just reveal a hidden world, they touched a global nerve. A longing for connection with these non-human intelligences. Technology here isn't an intrusion, but to key, unlocking sonic realms previously lost to us, from the ultrasonic clicks of insects to the strange, booming chorus of singing sands in the desert, a sound that baffled travelers for centuries, sometimes attributed to jinn or spirits. How has this ability to eavesdrop on the planet's hidden conversations changed our relationship with what we call nature? And what other unheard orchestras are still out there, waiting for us to tune in? This deep listening, this attunement to the voices of the natural world, it's an ancient practice. The shaman, Mircea Eliade's technician of ecstasy, has always understood this, journeying into the spirit realms, communicating with animal guides, their soundtrack often derived from, or an imitation of, nature itself. The rustle of leaves, the cry of a bird, the rush of water, they were pathways. Think of the ancient Chinese qin, its finger techniques named after animal movements, crane dancing, cold cicada, a direct line to the Taoist unity with nature. Or musicians like Jim Nolman, attempting a literal interspecies dialogue, playing music with orcas for turkeys. Is this a romantic folly, or a profound recognition that music isn't solely a human domain? This idea of music from nature, or music about nature, or even music with nature, where do the boundaries lie, and what can each approach teach us? Nature doesn't just provide sounds, it provides the spaces that shape them. The echo in the gorge, the resonance in the cave. These were perhaps our first cathedrals of sound, places that naturally amplified, transformed, and imbued sound with a sense of awe, of the sacred. Paul Horn taking his flute into the Taj Mahal, into the Great Pyramid, listening to the ancient stones sing back. And then there's Pauline Oliveros, descending into a 2 million gallon underground cistern with a 45-second reverberation, armed with her accordion. From this experience, her concept of deep listening was born, a practice of heightened awareness, of listening not just with ears, but with the whole body, to the subtle interplay of sound, space, and silence. Understanding that we are vibrations, she said. Sound is the leading energy in that development. In our world of constant distraction, is deep listening more vital than ever? How can we cultivate that profound attention, that inner quietude she spoke of? David Toop himself embodies this deep immersion in his account of travelling up the Orinoco River. It's more than a travelogue, it's a sonic ethnography of an altered state, the overwhelming chorus of frogs, the relentless drone of insects, the encounters with Makiriatari and Yanomami shamanism, the physical hardship, the psychological disorientation. He writes of recording ancient rain songs, of hearing the Bee Gees incongruously on a tape machine, deep in the jungle, a surreal juxtaposition of cultural sound waves. This journey, this raw, unfiltered confrontation with the overwhelming sound power of nature. How does such an experience change one's perception of music, of silence, of being? Does it strip away our cultural conditioning, forcing us to listen in a more primal, fundamental way? The legacy of this deep engagement with natural sound is vibrant. Acoustic ecology, the art of field recording, the philosophy of deep listening, these have all flourished since Toop wrote Ocean of Sound. Artists continue to blur the lines between nature and technology, using digital tools to explore, manipulate, and synthesize the sounds of the wild, creating new forms of environmental music that challenge and enchant us. The call of the wild, it seems, is as potent as ever, even in our hyper-digital age. Listen to Bernie Krause, a master conductor of the biophony. His monumental 2014 work with Richard Blackford is a literal marriage. The human composition, the anthropophony, in dialogue with the roaring, intricate music of the planet. It's an act of listening so complete, it becomes a collaboration. Or consider Dominic Uhlberg, the ecologist who's also a DJ. He takes the song of a specific bird, the unheard rhythm, and weaves it with a synthetic, modern heartbeat, the natural pace blended with the constructed one. Is this not the machine acting as a glorious digital ear? But sound is not just what we hear, it's how we listen. Pauline Oliveros taught us this with deep listening. We must listen not just with the ears, but with the whole body. In her 2005 document, Deep Time, Oliveros and Fritz Hauser force us into stillness, a slow-moving electronic soundscape that demands a prolonged presence. We're reminded of the philosophy, we are vibrations. Can we stop listening to nature and start making music with it? David Rothenberg, his 2005 album Why Birds Sing, captures this literal duet, an improvised call and response with natural musicians, the birds. Is that not the purest, most tender form of spiritual practice? And the tender tradition revived by Sam Lee, performing alongside live nightingales, a magical shared acoustic moment. Is this the shamanistic practice of attunement, the human voice harmonizing directly with the wild heart? Finally, we surrender, immersion in the sonic wild, the raw, unfiltered confrontation with nature's overwhelming power. The soundscape ceases to be the background and becomes the visceral, psychological experience, the kind David Toop describes in The Orinoco. Toop continues this journey for himself. His 2020 work, Apparition Paintings, is a descendant of that sonic ethnography, surreal, non-linear sound environments, a deliberate, fascinating psychological disorientation, achieved through cultural juxtaposition. Lawrence English pushes us deep into the listening trance. His work uses high-fidelity recordings so present, so overwhelming in their detail, that you feel physically displaced. The relentless drone, the ecosystem as a rhythm track. In the new millennium, nature has continued to teach us how to listen, how to connect with the world. We've heard the music of nature, raw and untamed, but what happens when we start to frame these sounds, to listen to the world itself as a composition, a vast, ongoing performance? R. Murray Schafer, a true pioneer of listening, suggested that the blurring of music and environmental sounds might be the defining feature of 20th century music. In this chapter, Theatre of Sound, David Toop invites us to take our seats and open our ears to the grand and sometimes subtle drama of the world's acoustic stage. Schafer and his World Soundscape project embarked on a radical mission to listen, to document, to analyze the soundscapes of specific environments, from bustling cities to remote villages. They were archivists of the audible, preserving vanishing sounds, the mournful cry of an old steam whistle, the particular clang of a blacksmith's hammer, before they faded into silence. This was acoustic ecology in its infancy, fostering an awareness of the sounds that shape our lives, often unconsciously. Schafer was critical of the imperialism of the eye, urging us to reclaim the power of the ear. But Toop also notes a potential nostalgia in this, a longing for a quieter, pre-industrial past. Is it important, do you think, to document these vanishing soundscapes? And what is the true value of consciously listening to our everyday sonic environment, even the parts we might find mundane or annoying? Schafer called for us to recover silence, and some artists took this to heart, creating a work that hovers on the very edge of audibility. Max Neuhaus, with his almost imperceptible sound installations, subtly altering the acoustic character of space, Thomas Kohner, working with what he called inaudible sounds, exploring the profound quiet that allows us to hear the ambient hum of our own environment, even our own bodies. Paul Schutz described how Kohner's music made him aware of the subtle sound in his own flat, sounds he'd never noticed before. Felix Hess's installation of robotic frogs, so sensitive they would only sing in extreme quiet, highlighted the constant barrage of environmental noise we typically ignore. What is the appeal of music that is barely there? How does it change the act of listening, making us lean in, sharpen our senses, become more aware of the silences between the sounds? But sound is a physical force, a vibration that shapes the world in tangible ways. Hans Jenny, with his astonishing cymatics work, made this visible. He showed how sound waves could organize matter, coaxing powders, liquids, into intricate, flowing mandala-like patterns. It's a beautiful demonstration of sound's inherent patterning, its connection to form, to geometry. Jenny saw these as homologous systems, linking these sonic vibrations to historical cycles, biorhythms, even mystical ideas from thinkers like Rudolf Steiner. What does this relationship between sound and visual pattern tell us about the underlying structure of reality? And how does it relate to the ways we instinctively visualize music in our own minds? If the world is a theatre of sound, then existing sound recordings are part of its script, its archive, and some artists see this archive as ripe for reinterpretation. John Oswald, with his concept of plunderphonics, took existing, often iconic recordings and radically transformed them through cutting, layering, and manipulation. His piece Power, a collision of Led Zeppelin and a fiery preacher, his famous Michael Jackson collages, which quickly ran afoul of Sony's lawyers. Oswald drew a distinction between simple quotation and true transformation. Electro-quotation, he called it. This practice throws up a hornet's nest of questions about copyright, authorship, originality, and artistic freedom in an age where any sound can be sampled, twisted, and reborn. Has digital technology made plunderphonics the norm? And where do you stand on the ethics of artists sampling and transforming other people's music? Is it theft or a vital form of creative dialogue? Toop offers a critique of what he sees as the command center grandiosity of some 1970s progressive rock like Rick Wakeman's King Arthur on Ice, or the more sweeping gestures of some new age music. He contrasts this with the approaches that embrace environmental sound or deconstruction, but he also points to another powerful theatre of sound, cinema, the hyper-real, deeply atmospheric sound design of Sergio Leone, Walter Murch's work on Taxi Driver, or Alan Spelt's groundbreaking industrial organic soundscapes for David Lynch's Eraserhead. This cinematic approach, creating sound design for an imaginary life, as Paul Schutz puts it, has profoundly influenced musicians who seek to build entirely sonic worlds. How important is non-musical sound design in creating an atmosphere for film? And can that sound design in itself be the music? The ideas explored in this chapter, the world as soundscape, music at the edge of silence, the art of the sample, the influence of cinematic sound, they didn't just disappear in 1995. They set the stage for so much of what followed. Soundscape composition matured, lowercase aesthetics found a global audience, digital sampling became an infinitely malleable tool, and the marriage of sound and image in music reached new levels of sophistication. The theatre of sound is always evolving. Jana Windaran gives us the hydrophone, a digital ear sunk into the black cold of the Arctic. It's the perfect modern echo of Schaeffer's acoustic biology. We move beyond merely archiving the natural world and begin to integrate it. The sound of snapping shrimp, the sonar of the whale, is no longer the background. It's the score for a drama we can't see, the raw and untamed language of a vanishing world. Listen to the caretakers, an empty bliss beyond this world. This is not the sound of nature, but the sound of memory decaying. Leyland Kirby takes the ballroom dance band, a social archive of joy and civility, and subjects it to the inevitable degradation of magnetic tape and mental collapse. The loops stutter, the melodies dissolve into fuzz and echo. It asks, is the only true vanishing soundscape the one we carry inside us, corrupted by the ultimate time-lapse of Alzheimer's? Stars of the Lid and their refinement of the decline. What a title. It's a cinema of slowness, a canvas of barely moving tonal colour. It extends the pursuit of recovering silence, not by eliminating sound, but by making it so minimal, so attenuated, that it forces the listener to lean in, to sharpen their senses. It's a trick, really. The silence you hear is your own body, the crack of the chair, the blood moving in your ears. The music simply frames that beautiful internal noise. The best ambient music is simply a setting, a location so vivid, so conceptually rich that the listener walks into it. Think of how a filmmaker, say Tarkovsky, will use a low rumble or a distant echo to suggest a space that is mythic and deep. We don't see the mesmerizing, we hear the weight of the past in the sound design. Tim Hecker, Harmony in Ultraviolet, 2006. Hecker's work is the sonic equivalent of a lens flare that overwhelms the image. It's distorted, overdriven, a beautiful, saturated fog of digital signal. The sounds are vast, a mass-smearing texture, but they're also unstable, constantly on the verge of collapsing into pure noise. This instability is the drama. It suggests an imaginary world that is sublime but fundamentally corrupted. Like a distant transmission from a collapsing star, it's the sound of the medium itself, used as a vast, expressive orchestra. And so we arrive, after all our voyages through the specific territories of sound, we find ourselves submerged within the very heart of the metaphor that David Toop gives us for this entire sprawling, beautiful chaos, the ocean of sound. An ocean of the unconscious, an ocean of information, vaster than any sea on earth, an ocean where boundaries dissolve and all sounds, all experiences merge and flow. This ocean, a realm of altered states, of dreams. Think of David Lynch, whose films navigate the strange currents of the subconscious, where logic bends and time flows backwards. Angelo Badalamenti, his composer, spoke of Lynch directing him to create music for Julie Cruz that was like the waves of the ocean, cosmic. Or consider those who sought to tune into other frequencies entirely. Konstantin Rodiv, believing he could record the voices of the dead on magnetic tape, electronic voice phenomena, whispers from across the ultimate divide. John Lilly exploring the consciousness of dolphins, and his own, in sensory deprivation tanks, sometimes aided by psychedelics, seeking to dissolve the self in the void. Music, in these contexts, becomes a medium for illusion, a reflection of these challenged realities. Can music truly access these dream states, these phantom frequencies, or does it simply provide the most evocative soundtrack for our own inner explorations? And then there's the sheer desire for immersion, to be submerged, enveloped, drowned in sound. From the quietude of the flotation tank, where the world recedes and the inner ocean emerges, to the overwhelming sonic assault of a My Bloody Valentine concert. A sound so dense it becomes almost physical, a tangible presence. This isn't just about listening, It's about feeling sound with every fibre of your being. The deep throb of a dub sound system vibrating your very bones, or the subtle environmental blending of ambient music designed to dissolve into the background, to become the very air you breathe. This desire to lose oneself in sound, to let it wash over you, to become one with its currents. It's a powerful, almost primal urge. It's the oceanic pull. But Toop offers a crucial caution. This oceanic immersion, this pursuit of altered states, can sometimes lead to a superficial paddling in the shallows. He critiques the very easy appropriation of shamanic concepts in contemporary culture, the weekend shaman courses, the unearned claims of rave culture to tribal ecstasy, Terence McKenna's Techno shamanism. He reminds us that the traditional shamanic journey wasn't always about white light bliss. It involved confronting darkness, gruesome corpse lands, mugging demons for wisdom. It was arduous, terrifying, transformative. Does purely escapist ambient music, the kind designed for only relaxation, for good vibes only, fail to engage with these deeper, often more challenging currents of human experience? Does music need to acknowledge the shadows, the complexities, to truly have depth and resonance in this vast ocean? In this increasingly technological ocean of information, where does the human element reside? Particularly the human voice, that most ancient, most immediate instrument, the beast calling, as Vernon Lee put it. Kate Bush, with her extraordinary voice and visionary narratives, particularly the Ninth Wave Suite from Hounds of Love, explored themes of drowning and rebirth, merging Celtic myth with sophisticated technology, her voice a beacon in the digital storm. Or David Sylvian, with his deeply collaborative approach, drawing musicians from diverse backgrounds, jazz, ambient, electronic, fourth world, creating atmospheres for listener reflection, fishing in the dark, as he described it, careful not to dictate with music. How does the human voice, in all its vulnerability and power, maintain its soul, its authenticity, amidst the overwhelming surge of the information ocean? And so, Toop brings us to a profound concluding thought. Music itself, fluid, quick, ethereal, outreaching, time-based, erotic, and mathematical, immersive and intangible, rational and unconscious, ambient and solid, in its very essence, anticipated the world we now inhabit. This fluid, immersive, non-linear, hyper-connected information ocean, as John Perry Barlow and Kevin Kelly termed it. Toshiharu Ito even compared humans in this new environment to dolphins swimming in a new kind of sea. Was music always preparing us for this? Has it become the quintessential soundtrack, the very language of our digital age? The ocean of sound surrounds us. It's within us. It's what we make and what makes us. The waves will keep rolling, the currents will keep shifting, and us, the listener, can float forever in this primordial drift. Thanks for taking this journey with me.